Hey everyone, this is Julia with episode number 87 of the Mixology Talk podcast. The nature of our industry is that many of us get out of work really late and take home a handful of cash. After a long, busy shift, it can be extremely tempting to find your way to your town's industry bar and decompress a little bit with your colleagues or friends. Unfortunately for too many of us, this can become an expensive and unhealthy habit, contributing to alcoholism issues and more. So today I thought it would be worthwhile to think about some of the other ideas for coming down after a busy shift without spending all your earnings or mortgaging your health. As always, you can find the show notes at mixologytalk.com/87. Let's get into it.
So this conversation started a couple of months ago when a bartender friend of mine and I had a conversation around this very specific topic. And I kind of offered up a couple of things that I've done in the past to kind of decompress after a shift. And we just started kind of having this conversation around it, and we thought it'd be interesting to talk about and kind of, you know, get a couple other people's insights into this as well. So today we're going to be focusing on ways to kind of decompress after your shift, how to come down in a really healthy way. And I think all too common, as Julia mentioned in the intro, it's very easy to go out, have a couple of cocktails, you know, and just kind of keep the party rolling.
Yeah, I think especially if you're coming off a really busy shift, a Friday night, a Saturday night, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you've been absolutely wired because you're 3 deep all night long. It's hard to just go to bed.
Yeah, and I always talk about kind of this formula that I had working in a restaurant business. You walk in the door and you start to grab a coffee immediately, like a couple shots of espresso to get the energy up, you know, a couple more throughout the shift. And you're usually not hydrated enough, so you don't really drink a lot of water, and then you go through an entire shift. So immediately you're dehydrated, and the first thing you want to do is kind of hydrate yourself, so you grab a beer after work or, you know, a shot or something like that. And it just kind of starts this kind of really kind of crazy cycle in our business anyways that I've noticed.
And it's really hard on your body. So we had a couple ideas for other ways that you can defrag after your shift. And I think the first thing that really came to mind for me is around sort of staying active, because your brain's already going 100 miles an hour. So I think this is one option that might work for some people, and frankly that I've heard a lot of folks say works for them, and that is to go to the gym.
Yeah, especially, you know, with 24-hour fitness now, and, you know, they've been around for a long time, but a lot of other gyms that offer 24-hour memberships. So you can go to the gym and you can kind of calm down some of that stress that you've built up in your body in a really healthy and positive way. And I'm going to go ahead and put a disclaimer. This entire episode is probably going to sound super like crunchy, granola, California focused, but I think that, you know, if you kind of adapt some of these ideas into your own way, it could be a really beneficial thing just for your overall health.
Exactly. It's just sort of brainstorming some ideas that might work for you. Take what works, leave the rest. Completely understood. But I will say one thing. There are not a lot of people using the free weights at 2 o'clock in the morning.
That's true.
So
yeah.
if you go to the gym at, 2 o'clock on a Saturday morning, you're probably going to have everything you need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not too crowded. But if there isn't a 24-hour gym near you, there are other things that you can do as well. Examples might include you could just bike to and from the bar, to and from your shift. Of course, that means you do have to bike before your shift as well, which may or may not work for how, where you live and how you operate. But being able to bike home can be a really sort of relaxing, sort of cleansing process. Yeah. Wind in your hair.
Yeah.
The open night.
You can bring back rollerblades. I think that was a thing, right? Back in the 80s. I know, right? How cool would that be?
That's a good idea. Not in San Francisco, because the streets are not level. You would die.
Yeah. This is a really good point. Is just staying active. If you don't have a bike or you live really close to home or to work, just go for a walk. If you have a pet, take it out for a walk. And I'm sure they would appreciate it.
I'm pretty sure the dog would appreciate that.
Yeah. So just a couple other ways of just staying active and kind of coming down naturally and a little bit slower than, sitting down behind on a bar seat and just going for it.
Yeah, exactly. And, not all shifts end at midnight. If it is the middle of the day, or if it is not too late at night, or even if stores are just open really late around you, run some errands, do the grocery shopping. Your brain's already active. You may as well do something constructive with that time and, avoid the sort of negative temptations.
Yeah. So on the flip side of that, there are other ways of kind of calming down and kind of putting, just kind of relaxing the body a lot more. And I'm sure like I said, this is going to sound super granola and super California, but meditation is a really good way to do that. I know you've had some experience with meditation, and is that something you think you would recommend for people?
I think it really depends on the person, honestly. If you're the kind of, some people want to go get on a bike and ride 20 miles, and some people want to sit down somewhere quiet with a cup of tea and to meditate. And I think you got to try a couple different things, know yourself, figure out what works for you. I know a lot of folks, if they're coming off of a busy environment, they need to be somewhere quiet. They need to be away from people. And I also know other folks who are the opposite.
It's funny. Like, I remember when I first moved in with my roommate a long time ago, and he was like, "Oh man, it's going to be a party every night. You're a bartender. It's going to be great." And I would come home after a busy, like just a week, my 5 days of work or something like that. And I told him, like, "Look, man, I get it. Last thing I want to do is have another conversation with somebody. I want to be quiet. I want to relax." He was like, "What? That's crazy to me." And I think this is more common than a lot of people say, but you're in a social atmosphere. You're talking all the time. I think that silence can be a really good thing for a lot of people that work in a bar. Yeah,
this is kind of contrary to the theme of this episode, but I remember during the holiday rush, when you were still working in a high volume bar, a bar that was especially high volume during the holidays, you would get home and I would look at you and you had this look in your eye, and I knew that I need to not say a word and make you a Manhattan.
Yeah, well, just like a couple hours of just kind of your own time, because you're giving out so much energy all day long. Just recharging that battery a little bit, however you do it, was really important for me. And that's kind of how I did it. It was just kind of take some time for myself and, just kind of recharge that battery. And I did it in a couple different ways. Manhattan was always a good choice, but kind of to the topic of what we're talking about today, there were also a lot of other choices as well. I actually started during the end of my being behind the bar. I replaced a lot of what I was consuming with tea, chamomile tea, just something to still drink and consume. Mm-hmm. So you still had that kind of bridge, but in a much more soothing way.
And I think if it's late at night, you're probably going to want to avoid caffeine.
Right.
But there are a lot of really good options out there. And frankly, decaf coffee, even if you're a coffee person, there is still a little bit of caffeine in decaf. So be aware of that. But I think there's nothing wrong with that if that's to your taste.
Yeah. And I will say that there's a lot of people that I met in this industry that are always working on something on the side, right? Whether it be a lot of musicians, a lot of people in acting, there's so many different things.
Hobbies.
Entrepreneurs that want to get their own thing going, people that want to open their own restaurants. This is the perfect time to channel that creativity and that energy. This is what I did. This is how we started this. A lot of what we do is I would be coming down, off of a shift, and my mind is just going a million miles an hour, and it takes me a couple hours, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, to kind of calm down, but your brain is going so quickly. And I use that to work on a bar above and write down a couple ideas and honestly learn a whole bunch of new skill sets that I needed to take the next step in my career.
Absolutely. It's a great time for that. And frankly, this day and age, there's a lot of ways that you can actually learn on the go. For example, if you have a long bus ride home or something, or like we talked about, a bike ride home, throw on a podcast.
Besides this one's trash.
This is a terrible idea.
It's garbage.
This one, I don't know. I don't recommend it. But there's a lot of podcasts out there that are extremely educational. If you want to learn about social media marketing, there's lots of podcasts about that topic. If you want to learn Spanish, there's lots of podcasts about that topic. If you're on a bus and you don't need your hands, there are apps like Duolingo that will actually teach you a whole new language. There's so much that you can do to use a completely different part of your brain and really kind of let go of that sort of high energy stress that propelled you through your shift.
Yeah. And actually, to that point, I remember when we were going through opening a bar above and getting that up and running, when I would set up the bar, I would usually get in a little bit early to do that. And I would always put on a podcast. And it was a way of kind of like keeping my brain active on something other than, the mundane thing of like cutting fruit and, opening up your bar and getting ice and all that stuff. And it was really valuable for me because it made me think outside of just, what I was going to do with that shift.
And it gives you some food for thought for your trip home.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a great thing. And like I said, a lot of people in this business have kind of this dream of what they want to do and, that other grown-up job they want to have or whatever. And that's a really great way to utilize some of this energy and this time, is to really focus on working on that side project, learning the skills you need to kind of get that next step up and running.
But if you're not the kind of person who wants to turn on your brain, I fully respect that. And I think that there are other options out there as well. I have absolutely loads of support for the trashy romance novel, for science fiction, for, whatever kind of book you want to read. I think that if you just came off a long bartending shift, more power to you. If it's 50 Shades of Grey, I say go to town.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
you're really supportive of that.
No, I think it's a great idea. Like, just anything that kind of occupies your mind and kind of like, gets you to relax and kind of calm down. I think it's a great idea.
Even if it's TV, like, we're not going to judge.
Man, binge watch some stuff.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is that you got to figure out what works for you. I think that, by calling this episode, quote unquote healthy is perhaps a little bit unfair. I think it's important to just learn what you need after your shift, and different shifts are going to need different things. If you have a quiet shift, you may want to go do something active and crazy and social. And if you have a busy shift, you may want to just veg out in front of some Sister Wives. I heard that's a show.
Sure.
Yeah. Reality television, that kind of thing. So figure out what works for you. I'm not going to judge you. Don't worry.
So another thing that you could do is, we're very social beings, especially in the restaurant community or in the restaurant business. Just kind of find other ways to hang out with people and be social with them without, going down and drinking a ton of alcohol or anything else like that.
Yeah, I think that some people need to get away from people after shift, and other people really re-energize by being around their own people. And again, you got to figure out what works for you. And there's, just because you're going out with coworkers and friends doesn't mean you have to order a pitcher of Fernet. You can order something that's non-alcoholic. You can order something that's low alcohol. There are a lot of options for you. And again, we're not going to judge. I think that ideally you're not going to want to be drinking lots of alcohol because of the reasons that we discussed earlier. But I think that there are definitely benefits to being around the people you care about.
Right. And, one of the things that I used to do is drink a bunch of tonic water with lime juice or soda water and lime. It looks like you're having a cocktail to the casual observer, but you get to just kind of relax.
And it's a lot cheaper.
It is. And you can still be part of that party. One of the other things that you could do is actually just kind of host the party at your place. If you have good roommates or cool roommates that are also in the industry, you can bring the party back to your house. Have everybody bring a little something, have family meal afterwards, talk about some crazy ideas or, whatever. If everyone's excited about, opening their own restaurant, then this could be a really great way of finding a couple of key people, brainstorming and talking about the concept and, building the business plan out and all these things around a really good meal, without the temptation of alcohol or, all the things that are involved usually with after work partying.
And by hosting it at your place, you can kind of control the environment and not be tempted, well, let's go to 3 more bars or that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if your family works in the industry too, your wife, your roommates, you can spend time with them as well. You can meet up after a shift and spend some time together. There's, we as an industry, a lot of us certainly do have family members who operate on a normal 9-to-5 schedule, but not all of us. And so if folks are awake, if it's a day shift, you can definitely take that time to spend with the people that you care about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And last but not least, I would say this one, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I find it really cathartic. And that is like cleaning.
Yeah,
absolutely. Doing the laundry. Like, I normally hate doing the laundry, but when I've had a long day, there's something very cathartic about accomplishing something that requires absolutely zero brain.
Right, but this one you got to be careful with, especially if you get out of shift at like 2:00 in the morning, you get home at 3 or 4. You
have roommates.
You have roommates. You have neighbors. They're gonna be like, "My God, that meth head again, cleaning at 3:00 in the morning. What the hell?"
Maybe woodworking, right. Running the drill press,
chainsaw, whatever.
You may want to be cognizant of the noise involved. That is a very good point. But it's something to think about. Maybe mop the floor. That's pretty quiet.
There you go. Or dust or something like that. But yeah, don't be a meth head, and don't let people think you're a meth head.
Don't be a meth head. That might be our new slogan. I like that.
New t-shirts.
I don't recommend meth as a way to decompress after your shift. I'm going to go ahead and make that call.
Yeah, that's a good point though. Just look for something else to do to occupy your time. Cleaning is absolutely a way to just kind of, it's almost meditative.
It is almost. Yeah. I think that's kind of why I like it. It requires no thought. It requires no planning. I can just kind of do the thing. I will always be successful. You never have to worry about doing it wrong
Right.
for the most part, but it works for me. And that's just really the point of this episode. Is you got to figure out what works for you. If you get out of your shift at 2:00 in the morning and you just want to go to bed, figure out what helps you wind down so that you can go to bed. If you're the kind of person who goes to bed at 6 a.m. and you've got 4 hours to kill, then figure out what you want to do in that time and what helps you build a long-term sort of healthy mindset. I think that it's really easy to get into a downward spiral in this industry, especially because it's very easy to do the things that you just see all your friends around you doing and not really taking the time to figure out what works for you.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of quickly run through kind of my scenario when I would get off work. This helped me save money. It helped me just kind of be a little bit more positive mindset and get a lot more things done. So what I would do is I would have all my cash on me from the shift that I just worked. I would walk directly over to the bank I banked with Wells Fargo. I would deposit all of my money because you can do that through the ATM now. So I would deposit all my cash so I didn't have that temptation of going out, and grabbing a beer with my friends because I no longer had liquid cash on me anymore. Then I would go either to the gym or I would, get on the bus or whatever. And if I was on the bus, I would be listening to podcasts or, something like that, reading, or even just taking notes on what I was going to do when I get home to work on my side project. So that was kind of my process of kind of avoiding temptation, still making it a really positive, healthy thing, and just moving forward with all the things that I wanted to get done.
Yeah, that's a great point. And actually, you did remind me of one more thing I wanted to mention. That is communication. If you have roommates, if you have a spouse and you know what you need, tell them.
Yeah.
Let them know. Because when Chris and I were first together, he would come home from a shift and I would jump on him and say, let's talk about my day. And I would tell him all about what's going on. And he would just look at me like a deer in the headlights. It was not what he needed at that time. And it took a little bit for me to realize that it wasn't me. At least I don't think so. It was just not what he needed after a shift. And so, yes, it might take a little time to figure out what you need, but once you do have that conversation, it's better for everybody. I think your roommate, your spouse will appreciate understanding that part of you a little bit better. And frankly, it'll help you be happier and help them be happier as well. So just something to consider.
No, that's a good point. Absolutely.
So there you have it. A couple ideas for decompressing after your shift that might be a little bit healthier than what you've been doing before. But again, you got to figure out what works for you, and I'm not going to judge you or tell you what you should do and what you shouldn't do. So just try a couple of things, and if you have some suggestions that we haven't mentioned, I would love to hear them over in the comments at mixologytalk.com/87. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll catch you next time. Cheers!
Never miss an episode by subscribing in iTunes or YouTube. And as always, check out the show notes by clicking on the right.